The Nexel trade station floated in the darkness of space like a metal city. Thousands of ships came and went every day. Traders sold everything here: food, weapons, medicine, and sometimes living beings. Kang Tai-ho walked through the lower levels of the station. He was a human, 34 years old, with tired eyes and rough hands. He owned a small cargo ship called the Wanderer. It was not a beautiful ship, but it was his. He had come to the station to pick up payment for his last delivery. The job was done. The money was in his account. He should have left immediately. But Tai-ho had a bad habit. He liked to walk. He liked to see places. And today, that habit brought him somewhere he did not expect. The smell hit him first. Sweat, fear, something rotten. He followed a narrow corridor and found himself standing at the edge of a large underground room. Hundreds of aliens sat in curved seats, facing a raised platform. Bright lights shone down on the stage. A tall creature with gray skin and golden robes stood at the center, speaking into a device that made his voice boom across the room. "Lot number 47, the creature announced. A Valorian female, young, strong genetics." Tai-ho watched as a blue-skinned woman was pushed onto the stage. Her hands were bound, a metal collar wrapped around her neck. Numbers flashed on screens around the room. Aliens raised their hands, calling out prices. The woman was sold in less than 2 minutes. Guards dragged her away. Tai-ho felt sick. He knew slavery existed in the galaxy. Humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. They were still learning how things worked out here, but knowing something and seeing it were different things. He should have left. He told himself to leave, but his feet did not move. The gray-skinned creature on stage smiled. His name was Dravik, and he was the owner of this auction house. He was rich, he was powerful, and he enjoyed his work. "Now," Dravik said, "we come to our final lot of the evening. I must warn you all, this lot is special." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Dravik waved his hand, and guards brought 6 figures onto the stage. They stood in a line, heads down, bodies trembling. Tai-ho looked at them carefully. The first was a Valorian woman. Her species was famous for their perfect eyesight. They could see colors that other species could not even imagine. But this woman's eyes were clouded white. She was blind. The second was a Thornaki male. His species communicated through complex songs and sounds. They could not speak any other way. But this one's throat was scarred. He was mute. The third was a Crodan female. Her species were warriors, tall and strong, built for battle. But this one was small and thin. Her arms were like sticks. She looked like she might break if someone touched her. The fourth was a Silithi male. His species only lived for about 40 years. This one looked ancient. His skin was wrinkled. His movements were slow. He was near the end of his life. The fifth was a Mindari male. His species were telepaths. They could read minds and share thoughts. But this young one stared at the floor with shame in his eyes. He could not read anyone's mind. His gift had never worked. The sixth was a Shamari female. Her species had natural exoskeletons, hard shells that protected their bodies and gave them strength. But her shell was cracked and broken in many places. Pieces were missing. She looked damaged beyond repair. "Defective merchandise," Dravik announced with a cruel smile. "A blind Valorian, a mute Thornaki, a weak Crodan, an expired Salathi, a broken Mindari, a damaged Shamari. I offer them as a single lot. Starting price is 500 credits. Silence filled the room. "Anyone?" Dravik asked. 400 credits? Nothing. 300? 200? 100 credits for all 6? Some aliens laughed. Others shook their heads. No one raised a hand. Dravik sighed dramatically. "Very well. If there are no buyers, this lot will be recycled." Tai-ho knew what that word meant. Recycled. It meant killed. Disposed of. Thrown away like garbage. He looked at the 6 aliens on the stage. The blind woman stood straight, trying to hold on to her dignity. The mute man's hands shook at his sides. The small Crodan woman looked ready to collapse. The old Salathi had closed his eyes, accepting his fate. The young Mindari was crying silently. The damaged Shamari stared at nothing. Tai-ho thought about his life. He thought about his sister back on Earth, the one who had been born different, the one who had proved everyone wrong. He thought about all the times people had told him that something or someone was worthless. His hand went up. 10,000 credits, he said. The room went quiet. Every alien turned to look at him. Dravik's golden eyes narrowed. I'm sorry, Dravik said slowly. Did you say 10,000 credits? For these defectives? I did, Tejo replied. His voice was calm, but his heart was beating fast. Laughter exploded across the room. Aliens pointed at him. Some could not believe what they were hearing. A human, a primitive, foolish human. Buying broken slaves for 10,000 credits. Dravik raised a hand, and the laughter stopped. He studied Tejo with interest. You understand what you are buying, human? These creatures are worthless. They cannot work. They cannot serve. They are defective. I understand, Tejo said. And you still wish to proceed? I do. Dravik smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then the lot is yours, human. 10,000 credits. The money left Tejo's account immediately. It was everything he had earned from his last job. Everything he had saved. Gone in a moment. Guards removed the collars from the 6 aliens and pushed them toward Tejo. They stumbled forward, confused and afraid. They did not understand what was happening. They had expected death. Instead, they had been sold to a strange creature from a species they barely knew. Tejo's communication device buzzed. He answered it. Tejo! A woman's voice shouted. It was Yoon Hana, his communications officer and oldest friend. Why is our account empty? What did you do? Tejo looked at the 6 aliens standing before him. They were watching him with fear in their eyes. They were waiting to see what kind of master he would be. We have passengers now, Tejo said simply. Prepare 6 rooms. 6 rooms? What are you talking about? Tejo, answer me. But Tejo ended the call. He turned to the 6 aliens and spoke softly. Follow me, he said. I'm taking you somewhere safe. They did not believe him. He could see it in their faces. But they had no choice. They followed him through the corridors, away from the auction house, toward the docking bay where the Wanderer waited. Behind them, Dravik watched from the shadows. His smile had faded. Something about this human bothered him. Humans were supposed to be primitive, foolish, easy to predict, but this one had looked at worthless merchandise and seen something else. Dravik did not like surprises. He made a note in his personal files. The human's name, his ship, his face. If this became a problem, he would deal with it. For now, he let the fool go. The Wanderer was not a large ship. It had a small bridge, a cargo hold, an engine room, and 8 personal quarters. Tejo had never needed more than 4 rooms before. Now all 8 would be full. Yoon Hana was waiting at the airlock when Tejo arrived with the 6 aliens. She was a woman of 30 years with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She had served with Tejo in the military. She had followed him into the cargo business. She trusted him completely. But right now she thought he had lost his mind. Slaves, she whispered as the 6 figures walked past her. You spent everything on slaves? Former slaves, Tejo said quietly. They are not slaves anymore. Hana opened her mouth to argue, but Tejo shook his head. Later, let them rest first. He led the 6 aliens to their quarters. Each room was small but clean. Each had a bed, a small bathroom, and a window that showed the stars. Tejo pointed to the rooms and told each alien to choose one. They did not move. The blind Valorian woman spoke first. Her voice was soft but steady. What do you want from us? Her name was Lyra, though Tejo did not know that yet. Nothing, Tejo said. That is not possible, Lyra replied. Everyone wants something. What work will we do? What service do you require? Tejo shook his head. Then he remembered she could not see him. No work, no service. You can rest tonight. Tomorrow we will talk. The 6 aliens looked at each other. They did not understand this human. Masters did not give rest. Masters did not say please or thank you. Masters gave orders and expected obedience. Slowly, one by one, they entered the rooms. Doors closed. Silence filled the corridor. Hana grabbed Tejo's arm and pulled him toward the bridge. Explain, she demanded. Now! Tejo sat in his captain's chair and told her everything. The auction, the laughter, the word recycled, the moment his hand went up. Hana listened without interrupting. When he finished, she sat down heavily in her own chair. "You are an idiot," she said. "Probably," Tejo agreed. "We have no money now. How will we buy fuel? Food? How will we survive? We will find work. Small jobs. We will manage." Hana stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed. "What are you going to do with them?" "I'm going to give them a choice," Tejo said. "Something no one has ever given them before." The next morning, Tejo gathered everyone in the common room. It was a simple space with a table, some chairs, and a food preparation area. Hana stood near the door, watching carefully. The 6 aliens entered slowly. They looked like they had not slept. Fear was still in their eyes. The blind Valorian held the wall as she walked. The mute Thornaki kept his head down. The small Croton woman sat as far from everyone as possible. The old Silathi moved with careful, painful steps. The young Mindari would not meet anyone's eyes. The damaged Shamari's broken shell clicked as she moved. Taiho stood before them. In his hands, he held the control devices for their slave collars. The collars were still around their necks, though the auction house had deactivated them. "I want to remove these," Taiho said, holding up the controls. "May I?" The aliens stared at him. No master had ever asked permission. Lyra, the blind Valorian, spoke again. "You are asking us?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because your body belongs to you, not to me, not to anyone." Silence stretched across the room. Then Lyra nodded slowly. "Remove it." Tejo walked to her and carefully unlocked the collar. It fell to the floor with a heavy sound. Lyra touched her bare neck. Tears formed in her clouded eyes. One by one, Tejo removed the other collars. The mute Thornaki, whose name was Gorek, touched his throat where the metal had been and made a sound that might have been a sob. The small Croton, Nessa, flinched when Taiho approached, but held still as he freed her. The old Silathi, Orin, whispered words of thanks in a language Taiho did not understand. The young Mindari, Vex, finally looked up, confusion replacing shame in his eyes. The damaged Shimari, Kala, watched her collar fall and seemed unable to believe it was real. Tejo gathered the collars and threw them into the garbage disposal. They were destroyed instantly. "Now," Tejo said, turning back to the group, "I want to explain something. You are not my property. You are not my slaves. You are free. When we reach the next station, you can leave. I will give you whatever credits I can spare. You can go anywhere you want." He paused. "Or," he continued, "you can stay, not as slaves, as crew, equal members of this ship. You would work with us, not for us. Any money we earn, we share equally." Nessa, the small Crodan, spoke for the first time. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why would you want us? We are defective. We are useless." Tejo looked at her. "Who told you that?" "Everyone." "Then everyone was wrong." He sat down at the table, putting himself at their level. "Where I come from," he said, "there is a word for people who think they can decide who is valuable and who is not. We call them wrong. A long time ago, humans believed the same things. We thought some people were worth less because they were different. We were stupid. We hurt many people. We learned slowly, but we learned." He pointed at Lyra. "You cannot see. So what? There are many ways to understand the world." He pointed at Gorek. "You cannot speak with your voice. So what? There are many ways to communicate." He pointed at Nessa. "You are not strong in your body. So what? There are many kinds of strength." He pointed at Orin. "You are old. So what? You have experience. You have wisdom." He pointed at Vex. "You cannot read minds. So what? Most species in the galaxy cannot read minds. It is not a defect. It is normal." He pointed at Kala. "Your shell is damaged. So what? It can be repaired. And even if it cannot, you are more than your shell." The room was very quiet. Orin, the old Salathi, cleared his throat. "I have perhaps 2 years left to live. Maybe less. What use could I possibly be?" "How many years have you already lived?" Tejo asked. 38. That is 38 years of seeing things, learning things, understanding things. That knowledge does not disappear because you are old. it becomes more valuable. Oren stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled. It was the first smile any of them had shown. Over the following days, Tai-Ho worked to make the ship comfortable for everyone. He installed audio navigation systems so Lyra could find her way. He learned basic sign language and taught it to the crew so Gorik could communicate. He built a mechanical support frame so Nessa could move without tiring. He gave Oren a small garden to tend, knowing that the old man loved growing things. He spent hours talking with Vex, teaching him that understanding people did not require reading their minds. He helped Kala find spare parts to repair her exoskeleton. Hana watched all of this with growing amazement. She had known Tai-Ho for 10 years. She had thought she understood him, but this was something new. One night she found him alone on the bridge, staring at the stars. "You really believe in them," she said. "I do," Tai-Ho replied. "Why?" Tai-Ho was quiet for a moment. "Because someone believed in me once, when no one else did, and it changed everything." He did not explain more. Hana did not ask. Behind them in their rooms, 6 aliens lay awake. For the first time in their lives, they felt something strange in their chests. Something warm, something light. It was hope. The Wanderer needed work. The ship needed fuel. The crew needed food. Tai-Ho had spent everything at the auction, and now they were flying on empty pockets. He found a job on the network. A mining colony called Dustfall needed medical supplies. The pay was low. The route was dangerous. Most ships would not take it. But Tai-Ho did not have a choice. "We leave in 2 hours," he announced to the crew. "It will take us 4 days to reach Dustfall. The path goes through the Coral asteroid belt. There may be pirates." Hana frowned. "Pirates? With no weapons budget and a damaged ship?" "We will be careful." The 6 aliens listened quietly. They were still learning how things worked on the Wanderer. They were still waiting for Tai-Ho to show his true nature, to demand something from them. But he never did. He asked. He suggested. He never ordered. Nessa, the small Croton woman, spoke up. Her voice was stronger now than it had been that first day. "I know the Coral Belt. My people used it for training exercises. I can help navigate." Tai-Ho looked at her with surprise. "You know military tactics?" Nessa lowered her eyes. "I studied them. I was supposed to be a warrior, but my body failed the tests. They sent me away before I could prove myself." "Then prove yourself now," Tai-Ho said simply. On the second day of travel, the ship's engine made a strange sound. It was quiet, almost nothing, but Lyra, the blind Valorian, heard it. "Something is wrong," she said suddenly. She was sitting in the common room, but her head was tilted, listening. "The engine. There is a vibration. It is not right." Hana checked the sensors. "I do not see anything." "It is there," Lyra insisted. "Small, but growing." Kala, the Shamari engineer, went to the engine room immediately. She had been repairing her own exoskeleton with spare parts from the ship. Now she turned her attention to the engine. An hour later, she found it. A tiny crack in one of the cooling pipes. If it had broken during flight, the engine would have overheated. The ship would have been stranded. "She was right," Kala said, pointing at the crack. "I have repaired it now. But if we had not checked, we would have lost the engine in 1 more day." Tai-Ho looked at Lyra. "How did you know?" Lyra touched her ear. "My people see with their eyes. I cannot see, so I learned to hear. Every machine makes sounds. Every system has a voice. I listen to them. When something changes, I notice." "That is incredible," Hana said. Lyra shook her head. "It is nothing. My people would say it is a poor replacement for sight." "Your people are wrong," Tai-Ho said firmly. On the 3rd day, they entered the Coral asteroid belt. The rocks floated everywhere, some as big as mountains, others as small as fists. Navigation was difficult. One wrong move could destroy the ship. And then the pirates came. 2 ships appeared on the sensors. They were fast and armed. They sent a message to the Wanderer. "Stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your cargo belongs to us now." Hana looked at Tai-Ho. "We cannot fight them. We cannot outrun them." But Nessa was already standing at the navigation console. Her eyes were moving rapidly, studying the asteroid patterns, calculating distances and speeds. "I have an idea," she said quietly, "but you must trust me." Tai-Ho did not hesitate. "Do it." Nessa took control of navigation. Her fingers moved across the console with precision. She turned the ship sharply, diving between two massive asteroids. The pirate ships followed. "They are faster than us," Hana warned. "Speed is not everything," Nessa replied. She guided the Wanderer through a narrow gap between rocks. The pirate ships followed, but they were bigger. One of them scraped against an asteroid and lost speed. Nessa turned again, leading them deeper into the belt. "There is a cluster ahead," she said. 17 asteroids moving in a rotation pattern. If we enter at the right moment, we pass through safely. If they follow, they will be trapped." "How do you know this?" Hana asked. "I studied. I memorized. I prepared for battles I was never allowed to fight." There was old pain in Nessa's voice, but also determination. She timed the entry perfectly. The Wanderer slipped through the rotating cluster like a thread through a needle. The pirate ships tried to follow. One was caught between two asteroids and crushed. The other was forced to retreat. The crew stared at Nessa in amazement. "We survived," Hana breathed. Nessa sat back exhausted. "My body is weak. My mind is not." On the fourth day, they reached Dustfall. The colony was poor and struggling. The people there were sick. They needed the medical supplies desperately. Oren, the elderly Silathi, walked through the cargo hold, examining the containers. His old eyes studied the labels carefully. "Wait," he said suddenly. "This container, it is labeled as standard medicine. But I recognize this symbol. It is Valoran blue extract. Very rare. Very valuable." Teho looked at the container. "Are you sure? I have lived 38 years. I have seen many things. I am sure." Valoran blue extract was worth 10 times more than standard medicine. The colony could use it to treat diseases that other medicines could not touch, and they could sell what they did not need to buy more supplies. When Teho told the colony leaders about the extract, they were shocked. They had ordered standard medicine and expected nothing special, but the supplier had made a mistake, sending something far more valuable. The colony paid Teho 3 times the original amount. It was not a fortune, but it was enough. Enough for fuel, enough for food, enough to keep flying. But the colony had another problem. Someone had been sabotaging their equipment. Machines broke, systems failed. They did not know who was responsible. Vex, the young Mindari who could not read minds, asked if he could help. "I cannot hear thought," he explained, "but I learned to watch. I watch faces. I watch hands. I listen to voices. People say things without knowing they say them." The colony leaders agreed to let him try. Vex spent half a day walking through the colony, talking to workers, watching them move, listening to their words. That evening, he came to Teho with an answer. "The man named Grell," Vex said. "He is the saboteur. He is angry because the colony leaders rejected his plan for expansion. He wants them to fail so he can take control." "How do you know this?" a colony leader demanded. "His hands shake when he talks about the broken machines. His eyes move to the left when he lies. His voice becomes higher when someone mentions the leaders. He is afraid of being caught, but also proud of what he has done." The colony leaders arrested Grell. He confessed immediately. The sabotage stopped. Before the Wanderer left Dustfall, Kala spent 3 hours improving the colony's main generator. She had learned engineering by repairing herself, piece by piece, year after year. Now she used that knowledge to help others. "It will run 30% more efficiently now," she told the grateful workers. "It should last another 10 years. As the ship lifted off, Hana sat beside Teho on the bridge. "They proved themselves," she said quietly. "All of them." Teho nodded. "They always had worth. They just needed someone to see it." Behind them, the 6 aliens talked together in the common room. They were laughing. Actually laughing. For the first time since any of them could remember, they felt like they belonged somewhere. But far away on the Nexal trade station, a message arrived on Dravik's personal terminal. The fool human ship had survived the Coral Belt. The defective slaves were not dead. They were thriving. Dravik read the report with cold eyes. This was not acceptable. Those slaves were supposed to die. Their survival was an insult. Their success was a threat. If word spread that defective merchandise could become valuable, it would damage his business. It would damage the entire slave trade. He began making calls. He had friends. He had resources. He had hunters who would do anything for the right price. The human would learn his mistakes soon enough. Word traveled fast in the galaxy. Stories moved from station to station, from ship to ship, from mouth to ear. And the story of the Wanderer was becoming one of those stories. A human had bought 6 defective slaves. A human had freed them. A human was treating them as equals. And somehow, impossibly, those defective slaves were proving everyone wrong. Some species laughed at the story. Others were curious. A few were angry. The galaxy had rules. It had systems. It had ways of deciding who was valuable and who was not. One foolish human was not supposed to change anything, but change was happening anyway. The Wanderer arrived at a neutral space station called the Crossroads. It was a place where all species could meet, trade, and talk without fighting. Tae-ho had business here. An old friend wanted to meet him. Park Sung-ho was waiting in a small restaurant on the station's 3rd level. He was a human, the same age as Tae-ho, with a serious face and careful eyes. They had served together in the military years ago. Now Sung-ho worked for Galactic Intelligence, gathering information, watching for threats. "You look terrible," Sung-ho said as Tae-ho sat down. "Thank you. You look the same as always." They smiled at each other. It had been 2 years since their last meeting. "I heard about what you did at Nexal," Sung-ho said. "Everyone has heard. You are famous now, or maybe infamous." "I did not do it for fame." "I know. That is why I am worried." Sung-ho leaned forward. "Tai-ho, you have made enemies. Dravik is not just a slave trader. He is connected to the Galactic Commerce Guild. They control half the trade routes in this sector. They do not like problems. And you are becoming a problem." Tae-ho frowned. "I bought slaves legally. I freed them legally. I broke no laws." "You broke something more dangerous than laws. You broke their beliefs. The slave trade depends on one idea, that some beings are worth less than others. If that idea dies, the trade dies with it, and you are making that idea look very foolish." "Good," Tae-ho said simply. Sung-ho sighed. "Just be careful. I have heard things. Dravik is not happy. He may try something." Meanwhile, the 6 aliens were exploring the station. For most of them, it was the first time they had walked freely in a public place without chains or collars. They stayed together, nervous but excited. Lyra and Hana walked side by side. The blind Valorian had learned to navigate by sound, and Hana had learned to describe things for her without being asked. "There is a garden ahead," Hana said. "Real plants, green and purple, water falling from stones." "I can hear the water," Lyra replied. "It sounds like singing." Gorek found a communication shop and stopped to look at the sign language programs they sold. A young alien child noticed him and waved. Gorek waved back. The child ran to their parent saying, "That big one talks with his hands. Can I learn to do that?" Nessa studied the tactical displays in a military supplies store. The owner, an old veteran, noticed her interest and began asking questions. When he learned about her knowledge of the Corral Belt maneuver, he was impressed. "You should teach at an academy," he said. "Strategy like that is rare." Oren sat on a bench and watched people pass. A young Salathi recognized him as an elder and stopped to pay respects. They talked for an hour. Oren shared stories of the old days. The young one listened with wide eyes. Vex helped a merchant settle a dispute with a customer. By watching their faces and listening to their words, he understood that both were afraid of losing respect. He found a solution that let both walk away with dignity. Kala repaired a broken food dispenser in the station's common area. She did it for free simply because she saw that people were hungry and the machine was not working. When they all returned to the ship that evening, they were different, lighter, happier. For the first time, they had interacted with the galaxy not as slaves, not as defectives, but as people. In the common room that night, Oren asked the question that had been sitting in everyone's mind. "Why did you do it?" he asked Tae-ho. "Why did you buy us? Why did you free us? Why do you believe in us when no one else does?" Tae-ho was quiet for a long moment. The crew waited. Finally, he spoke. "I had a sister," he said. "Her name was Su-yan. She was born deaf. She could not hear anything, Not music, not voices, not laughter. When she was young, many people said she was defective. They said she would never succeed. They said she was limited. He paused, his eyes looking at something far away. She became a surgeon, one of the best in our country. She saved thousands of lives with her hands. She worked in poor places, helping people who had no one else to help them. She proved everyone wrong, again and again. What happened to her? Lyra asked softly. She died 3 years ago. She was on a medical mission, helping victims of a disaster. There was a building collapse. She saved 4 people before the second collapse. She did not come out. The room was very still. When I saw you on that stage, Tejo continued, I saw her. I saw all the people who were told they were not good enough. I saw myself, the boy who everyone said would never amount to anything. And I thought, what would Su Yan do? What would she want me to do? He looked at each of them in turn. She would want me to give you a chance. The same chance someone gave her. The same chance someone gave me. Nessa had tears in her eyes. You see us the way she saw people. I try to, Taiho said. I fail sometimes. I am not perfect, but I try. Gorik stood up and walked to Taiho. He could not speak, but he did not need words. He placed his hand over his heart, then extended it toward Taiho. It was a gesture of gratitude, loyalty, and love, all combined. One by one, the others did the same. Lyra, Nessa, Orin, Vex, Kala. Even Hana, who rarely showed emotion, placed her hand over her heart. Tai-Ho felt something tight in his chest. He had been alone for a long time. He had lost his sister, lost his purpose, drifted through space with no real direction. Now somehow he had found something again. He had found a family. The moment was broken by a sound from the communication console. A message was coming in. Hana went to check it, and her face went pale. Tai-Ho, she said, you need to see this. The message was from an anonymous source. It contained one sentence and one image. The sentence read, return my property, human, or I will take everything you love. The image showed 3 ships. They were Bloodfang mercenaries, the most ruthless bounty hunters in the sector. And according to the tracking data attached, they were already on their way. Dravik had made his move. Tai-Ho looked at his crew, his family. They looked back at him with fear in their eyes, but also with something else. Trust, determination, courage. We knew this might happen, Tejo said. We have a choice. We can run and keep running. We can hide and hope they never find us. Or we can stand and show them what we are. What are we? Vex asked. Tejo smiled. We are the ones they threw away. We are the ones they called worthless, and we are going to prove them wrong. No one argued. No one backed down. They began preparing for battle. The Wanderer flew fast, but the Bloodfang ships flew faster. Tai-Ho knew they could not escape by speed alone. They needed to be smart. The Valori Nebula, Nessa said, pointing at the star map. It is 3 hours from here. The gas clouds interfere with sensors. If we enter there, we can hide. Or get lost and die, Hana replied. Yes, Nessa agreed. That is also possible. But dying in a nebula is better than dying here with nowhere to run. Tai-Ho made the decision quickly. Set course for the nebula. The Wanderer changed direction and pushed its engines to maximum. Behind them, the 3 Bloodfang ships followed like wolves, chasing wounded prey. Lyra sat at a console that Kala had built for her. It used sound instead of light, translating the ship's systems into tones and rhythms that she could understand. She listened carefully to everything around her. They are gaining, she said, but we will reach the nebula first, barely. The next 3 hours were tense. No one spoke much. Everyone prepared in their own way. Gorik checked and rechecked the ship's systems. He could not repair things during a fight, but he could make sure everything was ready before one. Nessa studied the nebula maps, looking for any advantage, any path, any trap she could use. Orin went to the communication array. He had an idea, but he did not share it yet. Vex sat quietly, focusing his mind. He could not read thoughts, but he could feel emotions if he concentrated hard enough. He would try to sense the enemy, to understand their patterns. Kala made final adjustments to the engines. She had already pushed them beyond their normal limits. Now she pushed them further. Hana and Tai-Ho sat on the bridge, watching the nebula grow larger ahead of them. "If we do not survive this," Hana said quietly, "I want you to know something." "We will survive," Tai-Ho interrupted. "But if we do not—" "We will survive," Tai-Ho repeated more firmly. Hana sighed. "You are impossible." "Yes, that is why we will survive." The Wanderer entered the nebula just as the Bloodfang ships came into weapons range. The gas cloud swallowed them immediately. Everything outside turned purple and gold, thick with particles that scrambled sensors and blocked communications. "We are blind now," Hana said. "So are they," Nessa replied. "But I have studied this nebula. I know its patterns. They do not." She took over navigation, guiding the ship through twisting corridors of gas and dust. The Bloodfang ships entered behind them, spreading out to search. For 20 minutes, they played a deadly game of hide-and-seek. The Wanderer moved quietly, cutting engines and drifting when possible. The Bloodfang ships searched with active sensors, making noise that Lyra could track. "One ship is 200 meters to our left," Lyra reported. "It is moving slowly, searching." "Another is below us," Vex added. He had found a way to sense the emotions of the crew aboard the enemy ships. Fear, frustration, anger. "They are getting impatient. They expected an easy hunt." "The third ship," Nessa said, "is circling above the nebula, waiting for us to try to escape. Classic hunting formation." Tai-Ho nodded. "Can we take them one at a time?" "Possibly, if we are very careful and very lucky." Orin cleared his throat. "I may be able to help with that." Everyone looked at the old Salathi. "Before I was sold into slavery," Orin explained, "I was a diplomat. I spoke to many species. I made many friends. Some of those friends became traders, others became pirates, and a few became the kind of people who operate in places like this nebula." He moved to the communication array. "The Bloodfang mercenaries have enemies. Everyone who is cruel has enemies. If I broadcast on the right frequency, with the right words, someone might be listening." "That is a big if," Hana said. "Yes," Orin agreed, "but I have nothing else to offer except my voice and my experience. Let me try." Tai-Ho nodded. "Do it." Orin began broadcasting. His voice was calm and steady, carrying across the frequencies that only certain people monitored. He spoke of freedom. He spoke of dignity. He spoke of a small ship fighting against hunters who served the slave trade. "Anyone who has lost someone to the slaver," he said, "anyone who has suffered under their cruelty, anyone who believes that living beings should not be bought and sold like cargo. We are here, we are fighting, and we could use your help." Silence, long, heavy silence. Then a response came. "This is the free trader Corvin's hope. We hear you, old one. We are coming." Another voice followed. "Independent vessel Night Wind, responding. The slavers killed my brother. I am with you." Tai-Ho felt something in his chest. Hope, real hope. "Two ships," Hana said. "That makes it an even fight." But there was no time to celebrate. One of the Bloodfang ships had found them. "Contact!" Lyra shouted. "Coming from the right, moving fast." The enemy ship emerged from the gas cloud, weapons already firing. The Wanderers shook as blasts hit their shields. "Return fire," Tai-Ho ordered. Hana launched everything they had. It was not much. The Wanderer was a cargo ship, not a warship. But Kala had made modifications, hidden weapons that hit harder than they should. The Bloodfang ship was surprised by the resistance. It pulled back, regrouping. "It is calling for the others," Vex said. "I can feel their communication, their coordination. They are converging on our position." "Nessa," Tai-Ho said, "get us out of here." Nessa's hands flew across the navigation console. She sent the ship diving into a dense cloud, then turned sharply, then rose again. The movements were erratic, unpredictable. The Bloodfang ships followed, but they were confused. They expected prey to run in straight lines. This prey was dancing. Then the free traders arrived. Corvin's hope came from above, weapons blazing. Night Wind attacked from below. The two mercenary ships suddenly found themselves under attack from multiple directions. "Now!" Tai-Ho shouted. "Hit them now!" The Wanderer turned and joined the assault. 3 ships against 3 ships. But the Bloodfang mercenaries were used to hunting weak prey, not fighting coordinated enemies. The battle was brutal but short. One Bloodfang ship was destroyed by Corvin's Hope. Another was crippled by Nightwind. The third tried to flee, but Lyra had been tracking its engine sounds. "There," she said, pointing at the navigation display. "It is running for the nebula edge. I can hear exactly where it is going." Nessa calculated an intercept course. Kala pushed the engines one final time. The Wanderer burst from the nebula and caught the fleeing ship with a precise shot that disabled its engines. The battle was over. The Wanderer floated in space, battered but alive. Smoke rose from damaged systems. Warning lights flashed everywhere. But they had survived. Corvin's Hope and Nightwind came alongside. Their captain sent messages of respect and farewell. They had done what they came to do. Now they would disappear back into the shadows of the galaxy. "Thank you," Tejo said to them. "Thank the Old One," Corvin's captain replied. "His words reminded us why we fight." Oren smiled, tired but satisfied. "Words are the only weapon I have left. I am glad they were enough." The crew gathered in the common room afterward. They were exhausted. Some were injured, but they were together and they were alive. Gorek signed something that made Nessa laugh. Lyra leaned against Hana, too tired to sit up straight. Oren was already falling asleep in his chair. Vex and Kala were tending to small wounds, helping each other. Tejo watched them all. "We are not running anymore," he said quietly. The crew looked at him. "Dravik tried to destroy us. He failed, but he will try again, and again, until we stop him for good." "How?" Hana asked. Tejo's eyes were hard. "We go back to Nexol. We expose him. We show the galaxy what he really is, and we end this." No one disagreed. They had been prey. Now they would become hunters. The plan was simple in concept and difficult in execution. They would return to the Nexol trade station during the Grand Commerce Summit, the biggest trading event of the year. Every important merchant, politician, and leader in the sector would be there, including Dravik. They would expose him. They would show the galaxy the truth about the slave trade. They would broadcast evidence to every screen on the station and beyond. But first, they needed that evidence. Park Sung-ho helped from the shadows. His intelligence contacts provided data on Dravik's operations, financial records, communication logs, lists of beings who had been sold, where they came from, where they went. The information was damning, but it needed to be delivered in a way that could not be ignored. "The summit has a central broadcast system," Sung-ho explained in a secret meeting. "Every screen on the station is connected to it. If you can access the main control room, you can show whatever you want to the entire galaxy." "How do we get to the control room?" Hana asked. "That is the hard part. It is in the center of the station, heavily guarded, multiple security checkpoints. You would need to move through the service tunnels to get there undetected." Nessa studied the station maps. "The tunnels are a maze. Without perfect knowledge of the layout, we would get lost." "I will not get lost," Lyra said quietly. "I can hear the station. Every ventilation system, every power conduit, every footstep. I can navigate by sound." Gorek signed something, Kala translated. "He says he can disable the security systems. He has studied them. They are older models, easy to fool if you know how." Oren spoke next. "I still have contacts on the station, old friends, old allies. I can spread rumors, create distractions. While everyone is looking one way, you can move the other." Vex added his part. "I will watch the crowd at the summit. I will know who is with Dravik, who is against him, and who can be turned to our side." Kala nodded. "And I will handle the broadcast system. Once we reach the control room, I can make it sing." Tejo looked at his crew, 6 beings who had been called worthless. Now they were planning to change the galaxy. "This is dangerous," he said. "If we fail, we will not escape. Dravik will kill us, or the authorities will arrest us, or both. Is everyone sure?" Everyone nodded. "Then we go." The Wanderer arrived at Nexol Trade Station 3 days before the summit. They docked in a far corner of the station, using false identification that Sung-ho had provided. Tai-ho paid for a week's stay with the last of their credits. For 3 days they prepared. Lyra memorized the station sounds, walking through public areas and listening, building a map in her mind. Gorek studied the security systems through maintenance terminals, learning their patterns. Nessa reviewed guard rotations and patrol schedules. Oren met with old contacts, whispering rumors of scandal and corruption. Vex attended public events, reading the emotions of the powerful, identifying allies and enemies. Kala gathered tools and equipment. On the night of the summit, they were ready. The event was held in the station's Great Hall, a massive chamber where thousands of beings gathered to trade, negotiate, and celebrate their wealth. At the center of it all stood Dravik, dressed in golden robes, smiling as if he owned everything and everyone. Taiho watched him from the edge of the crowd. Hate burned in his chest, but he pushed it down. This was not about revenge. This was about justice. "Begin," he said softly into his communication device. Oren's rumors had already done their work. Half the crowd was whispering about mysterious evidence, about secrets that would be revealed. The atmosphere was tense, expectant. Something was about to happen. Lyra led the infiltration team through the service tunnels. Taiho, Gorek, Nessa, and Kala followed close behind. The tunnels were dark and narrow, full of pipes and cables. Anyone else would have been lost in minutes. But Lyra moved with confidence. She could hear the vibration of power lines leading to the control room. She could hear guards breathing around corners. She could hear the difference between a safe path and a trap. "Left," she whispered, "then straight, then right, slowly. There are 2 guards ahead." Gorek moved forward. His hands found the security panel, and within seconds the corridor lights flickered. The guards looked up, confused. Nessa moved like a shadow, slipping past them before they could react. By the time they recovered, the team was gone. They reached the control room in 20 minutes. It was locked with 3 separate security systems. Kala went to work, her damaged fingers moving with precision. One system fell, then another, then the third. The door opened. Inside, 2 technicians stared at them in shock. Nessa moved fast, placing herself between them and the alarm. "We are not here to hurt anyone," she said, "but if you try to stop us, I will not be gentle." The technicians backed away. Kala sat at the main console. Her fingers danced across the controls. Screens flickered. Systems responded. She laughed softly. "This is beautiful technology. It deserves better masters. Let us give the galaxy a show." In the Great Hall, the celebration continued. Dravik was making a speech about prosperity and partnership, about the glory of commerce. He did not notice the screens behind him beginning to change. Vex stood in the crowd, watching faces. He felt the moment when confusion began to spread. Something was happening, something unexpected. The screen showed Dravik's face for a moment. Then they changed. Images appeared, documents, records, lists of names, dates, locations, beings who had been captured, sold, and killed. Financial transactions showing bribes to officials. Communications proving that Dravik knew exactly how his merchandise suffered. Audio recordings played. Dravik's own voice laughing about defective slaves, joking about how worthless beings were recycled like garbage, discussing which officials to pay for silence. The crowd stared in horror. Dravik's smile disappeared. He turned and saw what was playing behind him. His face went pale. "Stop this!" he screamed. "Guards, stop this now!" But Gorek had locked the guards out of the control room systems. They could not shut down the broadcast. The evidence kept coming. More images, more recordings, more proof of cruelty and corruption that could not be denied. Other beings in the crowd began to speak. Some had lost family to the slave trade. Others had suspected the truth but never had proof. Now they had it. Now everyone had it. Taiho walked through the chaos, moving toward the stage. He had not planned to confront Dravik directly, but something pulled him forward. Maybe it was his sister's memory. Maybe it was the faces of his crew. Maybe it was simply time. He reached the stage just as Dravik was trying to escape. Guards surrounded the merchant, but they hesitated. The broadcast had shown their involvement too. They were not sure whose side to be on. "Dravik," Taiho said. The merchant turned and saw him. Recognition flashed in his golden eyes. The fool human. The one who had bought the defectives. The one who had started all of this. "You," Dravik hissed. "You did this." "No," Taiho replied. "You did this. Every life you took. Every being you sold. Every cruelty you committed. I just showed the galaxy what you truly are. Dravik's face twisted with rage. He pulled a weapon from his robes, a small energy pistol that had been hidden. He aimed it at Teho's chest. Then die knowing you failed, he said. Kill me, and 100 more will take my place. The trade will continue. You changed nothing. Before he could fire, someone moved. Lyra, the blind Valorian. She had heard Dravik's heartbeat change before he drew the weapon. She had felt the shift in his breathing, the tension in his muscles. She knew exactly where his hand was, exactly how he was standing, exactly where to strike. Her hand shot out and caught his wrist. A quick twist, and the weapon fell. A second movement, and Dravik was on the ground, gasping. I may be blind, Lyra said quietly, but I see more than you ever will. Guards surged forward, but they were not coming for the crew. They were coming for Dravik. The broadcast had changed everything. Ignoring the evidence was no longer possible. Dravik was finished. As the merchant was dragged away, screaming about revenge and power, Teho stood on the stage and looked at the crowd. Thousands of eyes stared back at him. He did not give a speech. He did not claim victory. He simply said, every being has value. Every life matters. Remember that. Then he walked off the stage and reunited with his crew. They left the station that night, slipping away before anyone could stop them. Behind them, the Nexal trade station was in chaos, but it was a chaos that would lead to change. The slave trade would not end overnight. Dravik had been right about that, but a wound had been opened. Light had been let in, and sometimes that was enough to start healing. 6 months passed. The galaxy changed slowly, like a great ship turning in the darkness of space. The slave trade did not disappear, but it was wounded. Investigations spread from system to system. Corrupt officials were arrested. Slave markets were shut down. Beings who had been held in chains were set free, and everyone knew the name of the ship that had started it all. The Wanderer became a legend. Some called it a cargo ship. Others called it a freedom vessel. A few called it a symbol of hope. Teho did not care what they called it. He only cared that his family was safe, and they were more than safe. They were thriving. Lyra had become famous as the finest auditory navigator in the sector. Ships from across the galaxy requested her services. She turned most of them down, choosing to stay with the Wanderer. But she took time to teach others like her, blind beings from different species who had been told they could never fly among the stars. She proved them wrong, one student at a time. Gorak had established a communication program for beings who could not speak in traditional ways. Sign language, gesture systems, alternative communication devices. His methods spread from station to station. Species that had never understood each other before began to talk, to connect, to find common ground. The mute Thornaki had given voices to thousands. Nessa taught tactical thinking at a small academy on the edge of civilized space. Her students learned that strength was not about muscles or weapons. It was about the mind. Her strategies were studied by military officers, ship captains, and even politicians. The weak Croton, who had been rejected by her people, had become one of the most respected tactical minds in the sector. Oren published his memoirs. The book was called The Long View, and it told the story of his life, from his early years as a diplomat to his time as a slave to his final adventure with the Wanderer. It became a bestseller. Readers from every species found something in his words that spoke to them. The old Salathi, who had once believed his life was ending, discovered that his final years were his most meaningful. Vex became a counselor. He worked with beings who struggled to connect with others, who felt isolated, who believed they were broken. He taught them that understanding did not require telepathy. It required attention, patience, and care. The Mindari, who could not read minds, had learned to read hearts instead. Kala opened an engineering academy for the disabled and damaged. Her students came from everywhere. Beings with broken bodies, missing limbs, damaged systems. She taught them that their bodies were not limitations. They were just different tools that required different solutions. Her graduates built the next generation of ships, stations, and machines. The galaxy was being rebuilt by hands that others had called useless. The Wanderer itself had changed too. It was no longer a simple cargo vessel. It was a home. Teho had expanded the common room, adding comfortable chairs and a bigger table. Hana had planted small gardens in every corridor, filling the ship with green life. The 6 former slaves had decorated their quarters with personal items, memories, and hopes. But threats remained. High Commander Relis watched the changes with cold eyes. He was a Vornak, a species that valued order above all else. The slave trade was part of that order. The hierarchy of valuable and worthless was part of that order, and the humans were disrupting it. Relis had gathered allies. He had built cases. He was preparing to move against humanity, to contain them before they caused more damage to the careful systems of galactic civilization. The crew of the Wanderer knew that more battles were coming. They could feel it in the tension of every trade negotiation, every diplomatic meeting, every news report. The galaxy was divided. Some wanted change, others wanted to crush it. But for now, there was peace. One evening, Tejo stood on the bridge, watching the stars stream past as the Wanderer traveled through hyperspace. The ship was quiet. Most of the crew was asleep. Only Hana was awake, sitting in her chair, reviewing navigation charts. "Where are we going next?" she asked. "I do not know," Tejo admitted. "There are always jobs. There are always beings who need help. We will find something." Hana nodded. She was quiet for a moment, then spoke again. "Do you ever regret it? What you did at that auction?" Tejo thought about the question. He remembered standing in that underground room, watching 6 beings wait for death. He remembered the laughter, the mockery, the certainty that he was making a terrible mistake. He smiled. "Not for a single moment." Hana smiled too. "I used to think you were the biggest fool I had ever met. Now I think you might be the wisest person I know." Those 2 things are not mutually exclusive. They laughed together, quietly in the gentle hum of the ship. The next morning, the crew gathered for breakfast. It had become a tradition. No matter what jobs they were doing, no matter how busy they always ate the first meal of the day together. Gorik had learned to cook surprisingly well. He made dishes from his home planet, adapted for species that had different dietary needs. This morning, he served a warm stew that filled the common room with delicious smells. Lyra sat beside Hana, their friendship having grown deep over the months. They understood each other in ways that did not require words or sight. Nessa sat with her back to the wall, old habits dying hard. But her eyes were softer now. She was learning to trust, to relax, to believe that safety was possible. Oren sat at the head of the table, the honored elder. He told stories as they ate, memories from his long life, lessons he had learned, jokes he had collected. His voice was weaker than it had been, but his spirit was strong. Vex and Kala sat together, sharing a quiet conversation about a project they were working on. They had become partners in more than engineering. They understood each other's silences as well as their words. Tai-Ho sat among them and felt something he had not felt in a long time. Peace, belonging, home. After breakfast, Oren pulled Tai-Ho aside. "I need to tell you something," the old Salathi said. "I have perhaps 6 months left, maybe less." Tai-Ho felt a cold hand grip his heart. "Are you sure?" "I am old, Tai-Ho. I know my body, but do not be sad. These last months have been the best of my life. You gave me that. This family gave me that. I will die knowing that I mattered." Tai-Ho did not know what to say. Words felt too small. Oren placed a wrinkled hand on his shoulder. "I have one request. When I am gone, keep telling the story. Keep showing the galaxy that worth cannot be measured by the standards of the powerful. Keep believing in the broken ones." "I will," Tai-Ho promised. "Always." Oren smiled, satisfied. Then he returned to the common room, where the others were laughing at something Gorik had signed. Later that day, a message arrived from the Galactic Assembly. They were offering Tai-Ho a position as an ambassador for human-alien relations. It was a great honor. It meant recognition, resources, influence. Tai-Ho read the message, thought about it for exactly 3 seconds, and wrote a polite refusal. His place was here, on this ship, with this family. There would be time for politics and diplomacy later. Right now, the galaxy needed something simpler. It needed people who believed in second chances. It needed ships like the Wanderer, carrying hope from star to star. The refusal sent, Tai-Ho returned to the bridge. Hana was waiting. "The assembly job?" she asked. "Refused." "Good. We have work to do anyway. There is a colony in the outer systems that needs medical supplies, and a group of freed slaves who need transport to a safe haven, and about a dozen other requests. Then let us get started. The Wanderer jumped to hyperspace, stars blurring into streams of light. Behind them, the station they had left grew small and disappeared. Ahead of them, the unknown waited. In the common room, 6 beings who had once been called worthless sat together, playing games, sharing stories, building a life that no one had thought possible. Defective, the galaxy had called them. The galaxy had been wrong. In a universe that measured worth by function, one human had proved that value could not be calculated. It could only be recognized. It could only be given the chance to shine. And when it shone, it changed everything. The Wanderer flew on, carrying its crew of broken ones toward a future they would build together. Whatever came next, they would face it as a family. And that made all the difference.